Maybe I'm not good enough. I've thought that more times than I can count. I've heard it in my own head before big decisions, before conversations that mattered, before taking the risks I knew could change everything. It's a small sentence, but it has the power to stop your entire life. I learned something about that voice. It doesn't come from the truth. It comes from fear. And fear is a terrible advisor. It makes you play small. It convinces you to protect yourself from imagined dangers, instead of building the future you actually want. Over the years, I discovered that I could silence that voice, not by ignoring it, not by pretending I didn't feel it, but by replacing it. Replacing it with action, with proof, with rules that I refused to break. And the more I followed those rules, the less room there was for doubt to survive. Here's what I realized. Confidence is not born. It's built, brick by brick, decision by decision. And when you understand the rules for building it, you stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start proving it to yourself every single day. In this conversation, I want to give you those rules. 5 of them. 5 decisions you can make starting today that will turn self-doubt into the kind of confidence that carries you through anything. They worked for me. They've worked for countless people I've coached and led. And if you truly commit to them, they will work for you. So let's start. The first rule is the one that immediately begins to change the way you see yourself and the way the world responds to you. I used to think confidence was a feeling you either woke up with or didn't. That some people were just born with it. The natural leaders, the ones who could walk into a room and own it without even trying. I told myself I wasn't one of them. But over the years, I learned something that changed my life. Confidence isn't a gift. It's a decision. The first rule is simple in words, but heavy in action. Decide who you are and live as if it's already true. When I say decide, I don't mean daydream about who you wish you could be. I mean, pick the identity you want and start acting in complete alignment with it before you have any proof it's real. Because here's the truth. Your brain will believe whatever you repeat consistently. If you keep repeating the language and actions of self-doubt, that's who you'll be. If you keep repeating the language and actions of confidence, your mind will follow. I've watched people stay trapped for years because they were waiting for a sign. They told themselves they'd be confident once they achieved something impressive, once other people started noticing their worth, once they felt ready. That day never came, and it never will, unless you make the decision first. The decision is uncomfortable in the beginning. It will feel fake. You'll second-guess yourself. But you have to remember, your current self-doubt also started somewhere. It wasn't born overnight. It grew because you fed it. Every hesitation, every excuse, every time you played small, it became part of your identity. Now you're going to feed something else. I remember early in my career, I was given a role that, on paper, I wasn't qualified for. Every meeting felt like an interrogation. Every interaction felt like a test I was about to fail. And I almost stepped down. But one day, I decided, I am the person who can do this. Not someday. Not when I get more experience. Today. That decision didn't make the fear disappear overnight, but it gave me something bigger than the fear to focus on. Proving myself right. That's the power of this first rule. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about deciding that you're going to live as the person you want to become, and then refusing to break that decision. Confidence grows when your actions stop betraying your intentions. You might be wondering, what does this look like in practice? It means you stop walking into a room scanning for who's better than you. You stop speaking as if your words need permission to matter. You stop apologizing for existing in spaces you've earned the right to be in. Instead, you start moving with the quiet certainty that you belong, even if no one else sees it yet. This isn't arrogance. It's ownership. Arrogance is pretending you know everything. Ownership is knowing you're willing to grow into anything. When you decide who you are, you stop looking for confidence in other people's reactions. You carry it with you, and people feel it. They may not even be able to explain it, but they trust it. And here's the secret, you will too. Now, there's a danger here. If you decide who you are, but you keep making choices that contradict that decision, your self-doubt will grow louder than ever. So this first rule comes with a responsibility. Every day, check your alignment. Ask yourself, are my words, my actions, my habits, and my standards matching the identity I've chosen? If not, adjust immediately. Not tomorrow. Now. Because the gap between who you say you are and how you act is where doubt lives. And every time you close that gap, your confidence strengthens. This is where many people struggle. They think the decision is a one-time event. It's not. It's a daily choice. And the more days you choose it, the less room there is for self-doubt to survive. Eventually, it won't even feel like a choice anymore. It will just feel like you. I've seen this work in people who started with nothing but fear. They didn't change overnight, but they decided, every day, to live as their future self now. One day they woke up and realized they weren't faking it anymore. They had become it. And that's what I want for you. Not a burst of motivation that fades in a week. Not a surface-level confidence that disappears in the face of resistance. I want you to own who you've decided to be, so deeply that no setback can convince you to go back. That's the first step in turning self-doubt into confidence. Not a trick, not a slogan, a deliberate identity shift. From this day forward, you are no longer someone trying to be confident. You are someone who acts in confidence, because you've decided that's who you are. If this resonates, subscribe now. The next step is going to change the way you see yourself. And when you live like that, everything else we're about to discuss becomes easier. The second rule will show you how to reinforce that identity every single day, in a way that makes it unshakable, no matter what comes against you. One of the biggest mistakes I made early on was thinking confidence would stick just because I had one good day. I'd have a moment where I felt strong, where I spoke clearly, where people listened, and I thought, this is it. I've changed. Then the next challenge came, and my old self-doubt walked right back in like it had a key to my mind. That's when I realized, confidence is not a one-time event. It's a state you have to reinforce every single day until it becomes your default setting. And the way you do that is the second rule. Build daily evidence that you can trust yourself. Confidence dies in the gap between what you say you'll do and what you actually do. Every time you promise yourself you'll start, and you don't, self-doubt gets louder. Every time you commit to a standard, but you let it slide, you confirm the belief that you can't be counted on, even by you. It doesn't matter how much you believe in yourself in theory. If your actions keep showing you that your own word isn't solid, your mind will not trust you. I learned this the hard way. There was a time when my calendar was full of plans I never followed through on. Projects I started with energy, but abandoned halfway. Goals I told myself were important, until something easier or more comfortable showed up. And every time I broke a promise to myself, I didn't just lose progress. I lost respect for my own word. And without self-respect, confidence has no foundation. So I made a change. I started keeping promises to myself, even the small ones. Especially the small ones. Because confidence isn't built by grand declarations, it's built by small, consistent victories that prove you can be trusted. If I said I'd wake up at 6, I woke up at 6. If I said I'd make 5 calls today, I made them. If I said I'd speak up in a meeting, I did it. Not because those things alone would change my life, but because they were bricks in the structure of self-trust. And the more bricks I stacked, the stronger that structure became. You don't need the world to validate you when you have daily evidence that you're reliable. You don't need permission when you've already proven you'll act without it. And you don't crumble when things get hard because you've built proof, over and over, that you can show up for yourself. Here's the challenge most people face. They think keeping promises is about willpower. It's not. It's about clarity and commitment. If you make a commitment, but it's vague or overwhelming, you'll hesitate. If you make a clear, specific, measurable commitment and refuse to break it, you'll follow through. That's why I started writing my promises down. Not as a to-do list, but as a contract with myself. When you write it, it's no longer just an idea. It becomes a standard. And the more you live by your standards, the less room there is for self-doubt to breathe. When I coach people, I tell them to start small. Pick one thing you can do today that proves you can trust yourself. Do it without negotiation. Then add another, and another. Before long, you're not just keeping promises. you're becoming someone who doesn't even consider breaking them. This rule changes the way you see yourself. You stop being the person who tries and start being the person who does. And when you're that person, confidence follows naturally because it's no longer an act. It's who you are. There's something powerful about walking into any situation knowing, I keep my own word. It shifts your posture. It changes your tone. People sense it before you even speak. And more importantly, you sense it. You no longer have to hype yourself up. You just have to remember the evidence you've already built. But here's the thing. Just as confidence can grow, it can also decay. If you start breaking promises again, self-doubt will start rebuilding itself in the cracks. That's why this isn't a temporary habit. It's a permanent standard. And the longer you live by it, the stronger it gets. There will be days when you don't feel like doing it. Days when the old voice comes back, whispering that you can take it easy, that skipping once won't matter. That's the moment your decision matters most. Because skipping once does matter, not because of the task itself, but because of what it signals to your identity. You either reinforce trust or you erode it. There's no neutral. That's why I say, protect your self-trust like it's the most valuable thing you own. Because it is. Everything else you want, the career, the relationships, the life you imagine, will rest on that foundation. If the foundation is weak, everything built on top of it will shake. When you understand that, keeping your own word stops feeling like a burden. It becomes a privilege, a declaration that you respect yourself enough to do what you say you'll do. And that kind of respect transforms how you move through the world. So as you start applying this rule, remember, the size of the promise doesn't matter. The consistency does. And the more consistent you are, the less you'll even recognize the version of you who used to second-guess everything. The first rule gave you the identity. The second rule cements it in reality, day after day. And when you master this, you'll be ready for the third rule, the one that makes your confidence almost impossible to shake, even in the face of pressure. I've met people who, on paper, had every reason to be confident, talent, skills, experience. Yet they still collapsed the moment pressure hit. It wasn't because they lacked ability. It was because they had built their confidence on fragile ground. One criticism, one failure, one unexpected obstacle, and it all fell apart. That's when I understood the third rule. Anchor your confidence to something deeper than results. If your confidence only lives in your achievements, it will die the moment you fail. If it only lives in other people's approval, it will disappear the moment you're criticized. And if it only lives in comfort, it will vanish the second life gets hard. You need a foundation that doesn't crumble under pressure. For me, that foundation became my values, the unshakable standards I chose to live by, regardless of what was happening around me. Because results can be taken from you. Approval can be withdrawn. Comfort can be disrupted. But your values? Those are yours. And when your confidence is rooted there, nothing external can pull it out. I used to chase validation without even realizing it. I'd work harder, speak louder, try to impress people who barely noticed I was there. And when they finally did acknowledge me, I felt unstoppable until they didn't. The highs and lows were exhausting. It felt like my self-worth was on a leash that everyone else held in their hands. One day, I asked myself, what if I lived in a way that made me respect myself, even if no one else did? That question changed everything. I started measuring my success by a different standard. Am I living in alignment with my values today? Did I show up with integrity? Did I give my best effort? Did I act with courage, even when it was uncomfortable? If the answer was yes, then I counted it as a win, no matter what the outcome looked like. And here's what happened. My confidence stopped rising and falling with the scoreboard. I stopped needing applause to feel solid. I could walk into a room, face a challenge, or even fail publicly and still stand tall. Because my confidence was no longer rented from other people's opinions. It was owned fully by me. When I share this with people, they often say, "But Covey, isn't that lowering your standards?" Not at all. It's raising them. Because you're no longer chasing temporary approval, you're building permanent self-respect. And self-respect is the strongest fuel for real confidence. Think about it. What happens when you succeed? but you've compromised your values to get there? The win feels hollow. You might smile in public, but inside, you know you paid for that success with something you can't buy back. That's not confidence. That's a mask. Now, I'm not saying results don't matter. Of course they do. But results should be the byproduct of who you are, not the source of your worth. When you live this way, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with yourself in moments of doubt. You stop asking, "Do I deserve to be here?" Because your presence is no longer conditional. It's earned every day by the way you choose to live. This shift also changes how you handle failure. When your confidence is tied only to results, failure feels like proof that you're not enough. But when your confidence is tied to your values, failure becomes feedback, nothing more. It's a signal that something didn't work, not that you don't work. And that allows you to recover faster, learn quicker, and move forward without losing yourself. I've had seasons where the results didn't come, where I felt like I was doing everything right and still nothing was working. In the past, those seasons would have destroyed me. But once I anchored my confidence to my values, I could look myself in the mirror and know, I'm still showing up with integrity. I'm still keeping my standards. And because of that, my confidence stayed intact. This rule also protects you from comparison. When you measure your worth by external success, you will always find someone doing better, and it will eat away at your confidence. But when you measure it by your own values, you stay grounded. You can admire someone else's achievements without questioning your own. So how do you put this into action? First, get crystal clear on your values. Not the vague words that sound nice, but the principles you're willing to build your life around. For me, it was integrity, growth, contribution, and excellence. Once I defined them, I made them my compass. Every decision, every action, every response, I ran it through those values. And if it aligned, I did it with full confidence. If it didn't, I walked away, even if it cost me an opportunity. Second, stop giving other people the power to define your worth. You can value their feedback without basing your identity on it. Remember, confidence built on borrowed approval is a debt you'll spend your whole life trying to repay. Finally, remind yourself daily that your values are your anchor. When the storm comes, and it will, they will keep you steady. You won't need to scramble to rebuild your confidence because it won't have been damaged in the first place. The first rule gave you the identity. The second rule proved to you that you can trust yourself. The third rule makes that trust unshakable because it's no longer tied to things you can lose. And when you have this kind of foundation, you're ready for the fourth rule, the one that transforms your confidence from something personal into something magnetic, so strong it starts to influence everyone around you without you even trying. I've seen countless people who worked hard on themselves, built self-trust, and even lived by strong values. Yet they still felt invisible. They could be in the same room as incredible opportunities, but somehow, those opportunities always went to someone else. It wasn't because they lacked ability. It was because they hadn't learned the fourth rule: project confidence before you feel it. This is where so many people get stuck. They think they have to wait until they're fully confident inside before they can show it outside. But confidence doesn't work that way. If you hide until you feel ready, you'll be hiding forever. I learned this the hard way. In the early years of my career, I knew my work was solid. I knew I could bring value. But in meetings, I kept my head down. In conversations, I softened my opinions. I thought humility meant making myself small. And I watched as people with half my preparation were chosen for roles I wanted, simply because they carried themselves as if they belonged. That's when I made a decision. I was going to start showing up as if my confidence was already there. Not to fake it, but to lead it. Because the truth is, your mind follows your body just as much as your body follows your mind. If you move like someone who believes in themselves, you'll start thinking like someone who believes in themselves. Here's what I changed. I stopped walking into rooms scanning for approval. I entered with purpose, as if I had every right to be there, because I did. I lifted my head, met people's eyes, and spoke with a steady tone. Not rushed, not apologetic. I didn't fill every silence with nervous explanations. I let my words stand. And something interesting happened. People started treating me differently. Not because I'd magically become more skilled overnight, but because they could feel that I carried myself differently. Confidence is contagious. When you project it, others reflect it back to you. And that reflection reinforces your own belief. Many people hear this and worry it's about arrogance. It's not. Arrogance says, I'm better than you. Confidence says, I belong here as much as anyone else. One pushes people away. The other draws them in. The key is authenticity. Projecting confidence doesn't mean pretending to know everything. It means standing behind what you do know and being willing to learn what you don't without apologizing for either. One exercise I use is to decide, before I walk into any situation, how I want people to experience me. Do I want them to feel reassured, inspired, respected? Once I choose, I adjust my presence, my posture, my tone, my pacing to match that intention. Because confidence isn't just about what you think of yourself. It's also about the environment you create for others. When you do this consistently, something powerful happens. You stop relying on the internal feeling of confidence to act. You start generating that feeling through your actions. This shift is life-changing because it puts you in control. You no longer have to wait for the right mood, the right circumstances, or the right validation. You can step into confidence at will. And yes, in the beginning, it will feel awkward. It might even feel uncomfortable to stand taller, speak clearer, or claim space you've always surrendered before. But remember, every habit of self-doubt you have today also felt normal once. You just practiced it long enough for it to become automatic. Now, you're doing the same thing with confidence. I've watched people transform their lives simply by changing how they enter a room. They start getting invited into conversations they used to be left out of. They start being trusted with opportunities they were once overlooked for. Not because they became someone else, but because they finally let people see who they were all along. This isn't just about business or public speaking. It's about the way you carry yourself in every interaction. How you greet someone at the start of the day. How you respond when plans change. How you handle a disagreement. If you project steadiness and self-assurance, you'll navigate those moments with far greater influence and far less stress. There's a reason I placed this rule after building self-trust and anchoring your values. Without those, projecting confidence can feel hollow, like wearing a suit of armor with nothing underneath. But once you've done the inner work, this step amplifies it. It broadcasts to the world what you've already been building inside. Another thing to remember, your body is always sending messages, whether you mean it to or not. If your posture is closed, your eyes avoid contact, and your voice hesitates, people will sense uncertainty, even if your words are strong. But if your posture is open, your gaze steady, and your voice measured, people will sense assurance, even if you're still learning. I still practice this every day. Before I step into an important situation, I take a moment to ground myself. I straighten my posture, take a slow breath, and remind myself of one truth. I have earned my place here. Not because of perfection, but because I keep showing up. The more you project confidence, the more you'll attract situations that demand it. And that's a good thing, because those situations will stretch you, grow you, and confirm to you that you can handle more than you thought. This is the turning point where confidence stops being something you protect and starts being something you use. It's not just for your benefit anymore. It starts influencing how others think, act, and feel around you. And when that happens, you're ready for the fifth rule, the one that turns your confidence into a force that transforms not just your life, but the lives of the people who cross your path. There's a truth I've seen over and over again. Confidence isn't fully yours until you've tested it under pressure. It's one thing to feel certain when life is going smoothly. It's another thing entirely to hold that certainty when everything around you feels unstable. That's why the fifth rule is this: protect and renew your confidence daily. You see, confidence isn't a trophy you win once and place on a shelf. It's more like a muscle, and muscles grow only when you keep using them. If you stop training them, they weaken. If you stop feeding them, they shrink. And if you stop challenging them, they eventually disappear. I've worked with people who had built incredible confidence, only to see it vanish because they stopped maintaining it. They assumed they'd never go back to their old patterns until they did. Why? Because the world is full of situations, voices, and distractions that will try to erode your belief in yourself. If you're not intentional about renewing it, you'll eventually start listening to those voices again. For me, protecting my confidence means guarding my mental environment. I pay close attention to the conversations I engage in, the people I spend time with, and the information I consume. If something consistently makes me doubt my worth or my path, I limit my exposure to it. Not because I'm fragile, but because I refuse to let noise dilute my focus. It also means actively reminding myself of the truths that built my confidence in the first place. The identity I chose, the promises I kept, the values I anchored to, the way I've learned to project my presence. I revisit these regularly, not because I've forgotten them, but because repetition strengthens belief. One powerful habit I've developed is what I call a confidence audit. At the end of each week, I ask myself 3 questions. Did I live as the person I've decided to be? Did I keep my promises to myself? Did I act in alignment with my values, even under pressure? If I can answer yes to those, I know I've protected my foundation. If I answer no, I know exactly where I need to strengthen it. The renewal part is just as important as the protection. It's not enough to block out what weakens you. You have to actively feed what strengthens you. For me, that means seeking challenges instead of avoiding them. Pursuing growth experiences that stretch my skills. Stepping into situations that require courage instead of comfort. Because every time you do something hard and come out stronger, you reinforce your confidence. Many people think they'll protect their confidence by avoiding risk. But avoidance doesn't protect, it corrodes. The more you avoid, the smaller your world becomes. And the smaller your world, the less space your confidence has to grow. That's why I encourage people to do something every day that demands them to show up at their full strength. It doesn't have to be huge. It might be speaking up when you'd normally stay quiet, trying something new even if you're not sure you'll succeed, or setting a higher standard for yourself in a familiar situation. These small acts keep your confidence alive and ready for the moments when you truly need it. Another essential part of renewal is reflection. Confidence isn't just built in action. It's solidified when you take time to acknowledge the progress you've made. Most people skip this step. They focus on what's next without recognizing how far they've come. But when you pause to see the distance you've covered, you remind yourself, I've done hard things before. I can do them again. You'll notice that protecting and renewing your confidence isn't about clinging to it. It's about engaging with it, exercising it, and keeping it sharp. Because the moment you start taking it for granted is the moment it starts slipping away. I can tell you from experience, the people who sustain confidence for a lifetime are the ones who treat it as a living asset. They don't just wait for it to show up when needed. They feed it daily. They keep it active, challenged, and growing. And when you live this way, something extraordinary happens. Your confidence stops being situational. It stops being conditional. It becomes part of who you are, no matter where you are or what's happening around you. That's when you realize confidence was never the end goal. It was the tool you needed to build the life you wanted. It was the permission you were waiting for, but could have given yourself all along. The 5 rules you've learned here are not a checklist you complete once. They're a system you live by. Decide who you are and live as if it's already true. Build daily evidence that you can trust yourself. Anchor your confidence to unshakable values. Project confidence before you feel it. Protect and renew it every day. Live these, and self-doubt will no longer be the lens you see yourself through. Instead, you'll see opportunities where you used to see limits. You'll take actions you used to avoid. You'll step into rooms you once thought were too big for you and feel at home. And here's the beauty of it. The work doesn't stop here. What you've built in these moments can grow far beyond what you've imagined. Your next step is simply to keep going. Keep feeding the habits that strengthen you. Keep stepping into challenges that expand you. Keep moving toward the life that's waiting for you. Because you're no longer standing at the edge wondering if you're good enough. You've proven that you are, and now it's time to see just how far that belief can take you.